Mr. Everton, coming to you again from my porch. I hope the birds aren't too loud this time. Today we're going to be learning about America before it was discovered by Europeans. Before Europeans showed up in the Americas, what was it like? We're going to be talking about two groups of people, the Aztecs and the Incas, and we're going to be talking about how were they similar to other world empires in 1500. We've already learned about a lot of places. We learned about the Ottomans in the Middle East. We learned about the Mughals in India. We learned about the Ming Dynasty in China. We learned about Songhai and Congo and Ethiopia and Africa. We learned about the Pope and the peoples of Europe and how, like, the Protestant Reformation and the Renaissance and all that stuff. So how is America before Europe similar to those other places? When we talk about, in this video, we're going to talk about two people. We're going to talk about the Aztecs and the Inca. And they were the largest empires in the Americas in 1500. It's really important, though, to know that they were not the only people living in the Americas in 1500. They were just the two groups that had the largest empires. There were tons of other people who lived in the Americas. The Aztec lived in Mesoamerica, which means Middle America or Central America, in a part of the world that is today modern-day Mexico. The Inca lived on the west coast of South America in a mountain range called the Andes Mountains. And today that country is called Peru. So these were the two most powerful empires that dominated the Americas during this time. We're talking about the Aztecs first. The Aztecs were able to maintain power through alliances. They found other cities, other groups of people in the area who were powerful and teamed up with them in order to dominate their rivals. So, like, they teamed up with Tenochtitlan and Tlaxcala. I'm sorry. See, world history. It's hard to pronounce all the names. But they teamed up with those people in order to defeat the Mixtec. They actually, because the Aztecs were so, like, good at warfare, and because they were very, violent when they were fighting battles, they were really hated. They took over a lot of people and forced them to give them, to, like, pay tribute to them. So they were really hated by a lot of the other peoples in the Americas. They built this massive capital city called Tenochtitlan in the middle of a lake. Today, that city is called Mexico City. So Tenochtitlan turned into Mexico City. And there are all kinds of impressive engineering feats that the Aztecs used in order to make Tenochtitlan a city that they could live in. We watched a video about that in class. We also, in class, they talked about chinampas. And so chinampas are these floating gardens that the Aztec used in order to grow food. They would put poles down into the mud at the bottom of the lake, and then they would fill up the area between the poles and, create, like, this floating garden that was, like the size of, like, a football field. And they created hundreds of these things that they would use in order to grow crops in order to feed all the people of the Aztec Empire. The Aztecs were known for engaging in human sacrifice. They're not alone in that. It's a pretty famous part of what the Aztecs were about. And the reason why they did it was because they believed that the sun god required that they do that in order to, like, keep the sun shining. And so, like, if they didn't, like, give the sun god human blood, then, like, the sun would stop shining and the world would end. So, like, that's why they did it. We're going to watch a video in class about exactly how they did the human sacrifice, because it's gross and kids are interested in it. I'm interested in it. I think it's interesting. So, yeah, more on that soon. Let's talk about the Incas. Oh, before we get to that, human sacrifice was another way that they used. Human sacrifice was also a way that they dominated other groups, right? So, like, if the Aztecs took over your city, then one of the ways you had to pay tribute to them was by sending them prisoners to be sacrificed, which is another reason why people hated the Aztecs, because it's like, like, they took us over and now we had to send them my aunt to get her heart ripped out. I mean, you're not going to feel great about that. Of course not. So, anyway, human sacrifice makes people hate you. Okay, the Inca. The Inca. This is a site in the mountains called Machu Picchu, which is a very famous place where today there's lots of tourists who like to go there. But it was this, we believe it was like this religious site for the Inca. And it's really impressive because they were able to build this site up in the mountains with all these stones using human labor and llamas. And a llama was the only kind of animal that the Incas had to do like farm work, and a llama can only carry 30 pounds. So most of the stones had to be carried by people. Machu Picchu. Um, the Incas had a system of keeping records where they didn't write things down, they put knots into ropes. So you can see this person holding a very complex set of cord that are all tied together, and the different colors of the ropes and the different knots in the ropes mean different things, and it's a system of writing. They're called quipus. And like for example, it was like a way to keep track of like taxes. So like the Incas were taxing their subjects, making like you have to pay a certain amount of food to the government, and like the way we keep track of how much you owe and how much you've paid is through knotting these strings on this rope. They use the quipus for other kinds of record keeping as well. The Incas had an elaborate road system that allowed them to move through the mountains, move across their empire, and keep things unified and united. And the Incas had their own style of agriculture. If you have mountains that you are, if your territory that you control is mountains, it's not very easy to farm on the side of a mountain because it's on an incline. So like when it rains, all the seeds will get washed away. So what they would do, as you can see here, they would cut into the side of the mountain to make a flat space, and then they would plant on the side of the mountain that way. It's called terraced agriculture. The terrace is the flat part. So they create a terrace, a flat part, where they can do their farming. And that was how they were able to feed the people of their empire. Okay. So, there's so much more to talk about with the Incas and the Aztecs, but that's enough for this video. Make sure that you answer this question in at least 3 complete sentences. Make sure you're using details, specific facts from the video to support your answer, and I will talk to you in class.